a.m., but it's Wednesday, the 25th of May for Erik. And thank you so much for joining me, Erik Huberman. Welcome to the Art of Service, and welcome to this LinkedIn live stream. I found a couple of introductions for you, and it is mostly about your amazing journey in launching Hawke Media in 2014 and the fast growth you've gone through with that business. But I'm sure we're going to talk about that as well. But how do you usually introduce yourself?
I guess it depends on the audience. The founder and CEO of Hawke Media, which is an outsourced CMO and marketing team to companies. So go into brands, identify holes in their marketing strategy, and then spin up different experts a la carte month to month. So it could be a Facebook marketer, email marketer, web designer, etc. We've been around 8 years, have about 300 people, work with about 600 companies. We also have a venture fund, a $50 million fund focused on marketing technology and e-commerce technology, basically the tools we use to service our clients. We have a financing arm where we can help with working capital for our clients as they scale fast, and just came out with the book, The Hawke Method, which is the marketing methodology we use to grow the thousands of brands we have worked with. I'd say that's probably it in a nutshell. I'm a Scorpio.
Important for some people.
Yeah.
So definitely a go-getter. In addition to that, in your formal official bio, you have won a squillion awards. So you had the Forbes magazine 30 under 30, CSQ's 40 under 40, Inc. magazine top 25 marketing influencers, and the list goes on and on and on. So whatever it is that you're doing, it's working. So
I appreciate it. I think it's more, thankfully we're out in them where we make ourselves known. So it's seen is, I think, a big driver of that too.
Yeah. But I mean, isn't that part of marketing as well? Is 100%. I did start reading the book. So, the 3 pillars, the awareness part is, that's all about getting known and getting your name out there. So one of the things I was wondering was, a sentence, and it was really in the introduction of your book, where you said, like, a lot of business owners, when it comes to marketing, they don't see the forest for the trees. Everybody seems to be in this hamster wheel of doing things and constantly doing, but not having that sort of 30,000 foot helicopter view. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just impossible. I mean, it's the typical saying of the forest through the trees. Like, if you're in a company, you don't know what's going on in the world around you. You don't have that perspective. And so that's a lot of the reason why, like, when we talk, companies love to talk about, like, oh, we're outsourcing everything to agencies, or, oh no, we're bringing it all in-house. And this, like, extreme on either end is always just a giant mistake to me. Like, every company should use agencies and have people in-house. The reason being, agencies can bring that perspective of, we're seeing what tons of brands are doing. We know what's going on in the market. You just know what's going on for yourself. So the example would be, if your Facebook advertising returns decline, is it because you did something wrong? Is it because the market's changed? Is it because Facebook changed? Like, you don't know if you're operating just in your own vacuum. And that's just one example of 1,000 that come up with companies where we'll go into companies, we do audits. That's a lot of where the Hawke Method came from, was constantly auditing companies' marketing and trying to find where they were broken. And we'll go through and they'll be like, oh yeah, our email marketing is great. And we'll be like, what do you mean your email marketing's performance is horrible? They're like, no, but it went from 3% open rate to 5%. I'm like, yeah, and industry standard is 15 to 20. So like, you're still doing terrible. So it's things like that like, they see improvement, they assume that's good. They may be way off. It also works the other way, where they go, hey, our conversion rate on our site is only at 4%. We really want it at 6%. And I'm like, what's your average order value? They're like, $100. I'm like, you're like 4 times the industry standard, actually. So like, you're doing really, really well there. Stop spending all your time trying to fix something that's already outperforming and focus on low-hanging fruit. So it's that perspective that is super important in these businesses.
Yeah. So that's really, and my stickler is about asking questions and asking the right questions. And that's what I'm hearing through your message as well, is not just focusing on one thing, but continue to ask the question so that you look at the right metrics. Is that a fair assumption?
Well, it's more benchmarking than anything. It's actually knowing where your metrics stand against the industry and how that's changing and how the industry is changing, so that when you're trying to triage, the opportunities in your business, is it, do you actually know what you're looking at? Because in a vacuum, like, your numbers might be changing versus what they were a year ago. We're seeing this right now in the market heavily, where companies online skyrocketed in 2020 and 2021, and they just thought they'd keep going in 2022, and it didn't. And so now people think that they're doing something wrong, or that it's like, no, you had a crazy amount of growth if you're a digital company the past 2 years, and you're not going to continue that growth rate. Like, it's the adoption just accelerated, and there's not that much of a TAM, so total addressable market. So it's things like that you need to understand, the more global perspective versus just what's going on in your business, which what all they're saying is their growth rate is shrinking.
Yeah. So your approach, looking, benchmarking, it's really a holistic view to marketing. And I deliberately use the word holistic, because one of the things that I found out about the person behind the Hawke method is your primary, or what you call elementary and high school education, the school you went to, the Oak Grove School, very much a holistic approach to life and decision making and conversation communication skills. Unpack that. Like, how did that make you the person you are today, and how has that influenced you in becoming the marketeer you are today?
Yeah, I actually credit them a lot, and I think parents first and foremost. My parents were the big influence, but then I'd say in terms of childhood, that school did incredible things for me. And I would say, for more than anything, I think that school just really focused on sort of what matters. I don't know. They taught kids to question things. They got rid of all the pomp and circumstance of like Mr. and Mrs. when you're in school. Like, why do I have to show respect to my teacher versus, and I don't mean being disrespectful. I just mean like the positional respect versus the earned respect is a little different, and versus just a respect for your fellow person. And so that created a much more, there was no fear of authority, which I still see as such a problem, at least in our culture in the US, where like, I have it with my own team, and I talk about it all the time, where like, people don't feel comfortable talking to me because my title's CEO. So like a lot of our entry level employees and like, newer employees won't raise their hand, won't come talk to me, won't ask me for help, won't hit me up on Slack. And I'm super accessible. Our mission at the company is accessibility to great marketing. Like, accessibility is what drives me. And so it's like, it's really easy to hit me up. I talk to our employees all the time, the ones that want to, but it's probably 10, 20% of them that actually, more than that, but like 25% of them that actually really engage with me. The other 75 don't, like, steer clear. And I go to that because that school didn't ever teach us to fear authority, which then I never had that upbringing, which I think most people do. So they're afraid to walk into a, bigwig's office. They're afraid to talk to their CEO. They're afraid to ask for the things they want because they've been taught to keep their mouths shut and to, do their work. And Oak Grove didn't teach that way. Oak Grove created a monster in me. I was for teachers that didn't want an outspoken student, I was a nightmare. For the teachers that were really passionate, Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti is who founded it, was the people that were really passionate about his teachings and wanted to help kids thrive and be outspoken and, explore. I got along with great. And so, but I was basically taught and brought up to be outspoken and challenge authority and question things. And then the holistic side is, I also think that school does a really good job of teaching the pursuit of happiness. Like, if there's something that I see in common with all the kids that come out of there, they all seem to go with what they're very comfortable and happy doing versus falling into the rat race or falling into just a typical job or whatever. Like, they make things work. Most of them are frankly not financially motivated, but they go get, they find vocations, they find lifestyles that serve what they want to do. And I think some of them turn, like, I'm in my grade and one grade, and the whole high school was 42 kids when I was in it, and 3 of us got Forbes 30 under 30. So but I think there's a few more that went into business, but we're the only 3 that really went for that side. But everybody seems to come out wanting to pursue something that they're really passionate about and going all in on it. And yeah, it's just interesting to see how that comes out, because there isn't the typical pressure of like Ivy League, even though there's brilliant kids that do go Ivy League. It's like, the typical progression that kids are taught in the US doesn't apply to that school.
Yeah. So that openness to get out there in the world and openness to understand what it is that makes you happy. How does that turn you into the entrepreneur that you are now? I know it's probably not a conducive way to become a public servant, or because, unless that's really what you want.
No, I actually, I disagree. I think that there are people. So one of the people that got Forbes 30 under 30 did become a civil servant. He was the youngest deputy attorney general of California in history. That's what got him that title. So he went into politics and law because he wanted to serve. He actually really focuses on climate change, and he, did a bunch of things against anti-fracking and did a lot in that. So it really is it's the opposite. It's not about it. It is what's going to make you happy. And for me, somehow over the course of my, I'd say more young adulthood, I just wanted the opportunity to basically take advantage of everything life has to offer, try every hobby, do everything professionally, do everything. I'm religiously, I'm agnostic. So I wouldn't ever say, I think being atheist is just as ridiculous as what atheists feel about religious people, where it's how can you with certainty say there is no God? That, not to get a whole different topic, but I'm agnostic, where I'm I don't know, but I'm open to all possibilities. With that, there is a possibility that this is my one run, so to speak. So I want to experience everything that I can. And so to do that, success is, a huge enabler of that, so that I can go travel and try things and do different hobbies. And then, but professionally, that applies too, where I want to try, we just expanded into Europe. We have offices in Asia now too. We just acquired a software company. I want to try all these different things that interest me in business and continue to build and grow and learn new things personally, professionally, everywhere. And so whether it's building a family, this is not just Santa Monica, I just got my pilot's license 6 months ago, and all these different things that I want to try things and experience all these things that life has to offer. And that's what invigorates me, so to speak. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is trying new things. So when I don't feel good is when I'm having to fix old things or go back and repeat problems and that stuff. That's what drives me nuts. But as long as I'm growing and building and experiencing new things, I'm having a great time.
Yeah. And that deep understanding of what it is that you want, what you need, who you are, and what makes you happy. How have you turned that into your company's culture?
Yep. Number one, most important thing across not just myself, but everyone at the company, is self-retention. You've got to do the things and build the career and build the environment you have so that you want to keep doing it. And so that even, it's being able to have that balance. Where this came from was a year into business, we got offered to sell it for a lot of money for what it was worth. It was an absurd offer for what it was worth. But we had so much confidence we'd get way bigger that we didn't, it was we could take it. It'd be a good amount of money, but I'd rather keep going with this and build something big. But if we're going to do that, let's make this a marathon, not a sprint. And what does it look, what would we do if we sold right now? What are these what are the checklist items that we really wanted to do? And why don't we just do them anyways? Why don't we build a company where I can still for me, it was, I wanted to visit 2 or 3 really cool places a year. I wanted to go on 2 or 3 really great 10-day trips a year. For my business partner, it was, he wanted to play golf every other Wednesday morning. And that was 7.5 years ago. He didn't have kids yet. I didn't have a wife yet. It was a different priorities. But at that point, we did that, and we did that for years. So there was never I just want to get out of here so that I can go do X. It's let's just do X while we're here. And so I think that was a great approach. And we try to encourage the rest of our people to do that. When COVID hit, we had a lot of employees, people were saying they're stir crazy, et cetera. We're well, you are completely mobile. We're remote. So from Mexico, we had, when I'm listing places people went, Mexico, Jamaica, Europe, people just, handled their work, but we're able to use this as an opportunity to have balance and do other things too. And and I did it too. I worked from Mexico for a month. I worked from a ski mountain in the middle of nowhere in Utah for a month because my wife's remote too. And so we were able to do that. And it's taking advantage of the situation, again, experiencing what you can, doing these things. And we try to encourage our employees to do that. And I will absolutely say a lot of them are great about it. And sometimes you'll get the people that can't get out of their own way. I think it's really important in your own mind to like give yourself sort of permission and look at the upside of things, not all the reasons why you can't. It's like pessimist, optimist a little bit. And you have to be optimistic in these kind of senses of like, how can I make this the life I want to live?
Yeah. And how do you help your employees to not so much make that shift, but show them that the other side is possible as well?
It's honestly, it can't come from me because it's easy for you to say you're the CEO. It's when employees that are that way do it, and I can point to them, which is what ends up happening. It's like helping the employees that are motivated to live that life, to find balance, do those things, and showing like, yeah, look how great they're doing. Like you can do this too, and that's what ends up happening.
Yeah. So let's talk about your employee. Sorry.
It is hard when it's coming from me, and it's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a top-down thing, and they go, yeah, no, it's not intrinsical.
Exactly.
So you as the employer and the CEO, let's talk about your journey, because it's been insane. Like you've only started this company, what, 5 years ago? Yeah.
No, it's eight now.
Oh yeah, 2014. So 8 years ago. But still, starting with 2, and now it's like 260, 300. Like it's been a wild ride. Talk me through what that did for you as the owner, as the CEO. How did you have to change during that journey?
Oh. I mean, you have to constantly change. I'm having to go through another shift now. It's I mean, I'd say every time the company doubles, this is kind of the rule of thumb. Every time a company doubles, the entire culture, organization, the way it needs to run changes. So 2 to 4, which we didn't go 2 to 4, we went 2 to 7, and then 7 to 17 really is when we hit that next thing. Then 34, 5, I think, and then 65, etc. And every one of those stages is a very different place because there's things you like when you're 2 people, it was me doing everything with an assistant was the 2 people. Then when it was 7 people, it was like, okay, now we have a team working under us. So we have to manage people, but I still have to drive and bring enough business now to pay for 7 people instead of 2. And so you change your mode. And then when 17 come in, now we need middle management. We need someone to manage these people that isn't just me because I can't manage 17 people. Then you get to 35. And I think it was, it just every time. So at 35, it's now you have a team of managers. You're starting to build out infrastructure, et cetera. You're starting to build out processes. You're starting to figure out how to like run a business that's consistent. We brought on, a couple salespeople, but I was still driving everything. Then it's 65. I'm trying to remember. It was actually more like 80 people was when I couldn't drive enough business to sustain. And I had to find a way to now make a scalable sales and marketing team that would bring in business without me just being the guy. And so it was like, that was a big shift for me. Like all of this was just operational shifts, but I was out and about closing all our deals, constantly on the phone, constantly bringing in business. And then it was like, I got to hand this off because it's not scalable. And so that, and then, and then you get to, and around that time, you also have to then build HR and legal and accounting teams and like all the infrastructure and operations teams, which is super expensive. And so then you end up with this huge amount of infrastructure and overhead. We watch this, we do a lot of M&A. So we look at a lot of agencies. They all get to this 10 to 15 million revenue mark. And then you have to build all this infrastructure and you stop making money for a while because you have all this infrastructure, but you haven't scaled enough to absorb it all. So then you get to this point where you're running tight, but you're trying to get growth. You grow past that, and then it ends up into a whole new world where you're now a big operation and you've got, a couple hundred people and you've got this infrastructure, and now you have directors, managers, VPs, C-suites. You're starting to build out this whole team, and now you have to deal with mostly it becomes managing people at that point and hire and recruiting great people and great people and working with and being strategic. And that's back to what I said originally about sort of what gives me energy is trying something new. And so every one of these phases is a whole new environment for me to try to figure out how to adapt to that and how to operate in it. And the bigger you are, the mistakes are more expensive. It's harder to shift, but you keep doing it. And like I don't feel like we're even scratching the surface. I want this company to be thousands and tens of thousands of people at some point. So
yeah, so big lofty dreams. So so, but apart from, like you said, it's a lot of operational and tactical changes and phases that you went through. You as a person, you love new things, so that's helping. You know exactly where you want to go or how you want to do it. But you also mentioned that it's important to benchmark. So how do you benchmark yourself? Where do you go for inspiration, for support, for help? And we'll get back to the marketing bit.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this before. I have a good CEO coach that helps me with some of it. I do talk, honestly, one of the best places to find benchmarks for your industry, if you're looking for just general benchmarks, is investment bankers. They'll love to give them to you. And because they hope that it's someday when you want to sell, you'll call them. And you can get great reports on how the industry is performing from bankers. So that's a place. And then YPO has been a great network. It's once you reach 13 million in revenue, which is their minimum, and 50 employees, I highly recommend looking into that because it's 29,000 people around the world that are just running businesses. So you can reach out to people, you connect. I built an incredible network there of people that we share info. In fact, two of our biggest competitors in LA are both members, and we're all friends. Like there's enough business to go around, kind of thing. So a lot of it we share, with exception, but we definitely are pretty open to helping each other out.
Yeah. So it's not a single thing. And when you're not at that 13 to 15 million in revenue, there's always EO is more for the business owners, entrepreneurs, organization, for the owner, founder. And then, if you do want to sort of step up, you can go into YPO if you so wish to do so. But both of them are just great organizations.
Agreed.
And so back to the marketing, because one of the things that I heard you say is when you got to that 65 to 80 people, that's when you had to let go of being the forefront of sales and marketing, and you had to start employing people. At that stage, up until that stage, you have to do, you did all the marketing and sales yourself. And I'm assuming a lot of your clients are in that stage as well, where, not seeing the forest for the trees and not being able to have a whole big marketing team. So talk to me about the Hawke method and how that can help them at that stage in the business.
Yeah, my favorite review I've had for the book, and we've sold about 30,000 copies since March, excuse me. My favorite review was a 1-star, or first 1-star review was, I don't get it. It's basically just modern marketing 101. Like, you got it. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. So really what it is, we spend basically every company that calls us, we do a free audit for. So we're going to look at their marketing, see what they're doing right and wrong, see where we can help them, et cetera. And to do that audit, I had to develop something like sort of a framework of how do I look at marketing so I can actually quickly identify the low-hanging fruit in someone's marketing and where we can attack. And so I did this for, before I read the book, 6.5 years before I started writing the book. We were doing this thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And then we would go in and go, oh, you're missing this, so we need to focus on this. And you start to realize just by doing it, everything in marketing falls into these 3 buckets: awareness, nurturing, and trust. Awareness being, how do you introduce your company to a new potential customer? Nurturing, what do you do from when you first introduce them to when they actually purchase? Because there is a period there. One of the biggest things CEOs and marketers miss is the purchase cycle. People take time to buy something. It's not instant. So when you're looking at your data, you have to remember that aspect, that variable. So nurturing, what do you do to get them to close at a higher rate and faster, as well as what do you do post-purchase to bring them coming back? Because that's critical as well. And the last piece, trust, also known as brand, is basically what do we do to build trust with customers? Originally, it's third-party validation like PR, referrals, reviews, anything that someone else is lending their trust to you, basically. And then eventually it becomes your brand. What do you do consistently? What are you known for? That's what people trust. And so with those principles, then we can look at a company and go, hey, it looks like their conversion rate's broken. Well, what in nurturing or trust is going wrong? And again, benchmarking is also critical in this, because you have to know, is that number bad because of in a vacuum, or is it bad industry-wide? And so doing this, again, thousands and thousands and thousands of times, seeing it work and seeing a bunch of companies, we identified problems with tons of companies and grew them and were successful. We decided to put those principles down into a book of like, here's the overall buckets, here's how to look at the individual spaces in those buckets, and That is the Hawke method.
It sounds so simple.
It is.
So
So my favorite part was my wife refused to write a review until she read it. And she went into our bedroom and then came out like 2 hours later and was like, okay, great book. I get what you do now. Like it is supposed to be, and she's a voracious reader at one, but it's supposed to be an easy read. Like the idea here is we're sending this to every client, to our employees, so that we all speak the same language, that this is just, it's modern marketing 101.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not something that only works for larger companies. So it could be from a startup to, a Fortune 500 company.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's,
it works across the board. I mean, there's anecdotes in there about sitting with Fortune 500 companies and seeing that they're completely missing literally one of the principles. Like they're not doing anything to nurture their customers.
Yeah. So in your audits, what do you feel is like the biggest risk that people run with their marketing? What is the biggest risk you need to mitigate?
It is that purchase cycle thing. So basically, if we're talking consumer brands, let's take it in like e-commerce. If you have a $50 average order value, your purchase cycle is probably 3 weeks. At $100, it's about 5 weeks. $200 is about 6 weeks, and it trails off between 2 and 3 months after that, which means most companies have a 3-week to 3-month purchase cycle. And so when you're running Facebook ads, Facebook, when iOS did its changes a year ago, Apple changed iOS so you couldn't track as well on Facebook. Facebook changes tracking from a 28-day window to 7. And that 7-day window is still completely inaccurate. It's actually based on assumptions, not correct numbers. And so if you're tracking your marketing returns on a 7-day window, but your purchase cycle is 2 months, that data is useless, virtually useless. And yet people right now are freaking out about their marketing returns because Facebook is telling them itself that they're doing a bad job, where it's like, you're not doing bad at all. Like, it's just, you're not looking at this right. And so tracking your marketing based on that cycle is critical, and really understanding the logic of that like you're going to run a bunch of ads, and on average, those people will not buy for a couple months. So if you want to actually measure the efficacy of your marketing, you need to watch that whole timeline and know that that's still a half-life. That's an average. That's only half the revenue you're going to make. So it's really important to look at it that way. Or if not, you're going to end up cutting off your nose to spite your face, basically.
And I'm assuming that happens a lot. I mean, even it's human nature.
Yeah, it's very, very, very frequent.
Yeah,
and and it's hard to push back. So we're doing constant training with our people now on how to talk about it, because clients will hear that and be like, yeah, but Facebook says it sucks. It's like, I get it. Yeah, it's and I've had these conversations where someone's debating it with me. I'm like, do you realize this is what I do with 600 companies right now? Like, I promise you, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So how do you get through that cycle? How do you break out of that cycle? What is it that people need to know, and people being business owners, entrepreneurs?
So you need to find a way, depending on the business, you have to look at the way to track your sales cycle. Every business owner should know that. I know mine, like that's a given. And then you start to track how much money did you spend, let's say last month, and then look at how much, keep your spend consistent for a little while, because then you won't have fluctuations, and look at what kind of a CAC you develop over the course of that purchase cycle. Like, okay, so we're spending, $1,000 a day on marketing, let's just say. And so, we have a 1-month purchase cycle. In the second month, let's keep spending 1,000. How many customers are acquiring a day? Let's say it's 10. Great. So our CAC is about $100. Now you know your CAC. What's your lifetime value of a customer? Now, if you're a brand new company, that's hard. That's where benchmarking comes in. What is standard for your industry, and what can you hope for with given your average order value? How many times they're going to purchase? Like, put some logic into this, make an assumption. Over time, take a cohort, start with a 1-year LTV. So take Q1 of 2021, look at that customer base. How much money on average have they spent with you since then? That's your 1-year LTV currently for that cohort. Look at it a couple different ways to make sure that there's no anomalies, and then go, okay, great. So that's our LTV, that's our CAC. And if your CAC to LTV is over 4, you're probably okay. If it's over 6.5, you're crushing it. If it's more than that, obviously the bigger the better. And so that's really important for sustainability of a business. And then you get into a report just came out a few days ago that at least in software, $1 spent on marketing is adding about $18 in enterprise value, meaning the actual value of the business. So you have to start thinking also about like, how do you run a sustainable business that grows? But then also, what are you doing to create enterprise value, the value of the actual business if you sold it? Because as a founder and owner, like that is really where your money and your comes in. So all these things start to play into your strategy for growth, your strategy for this marketing.
Yeah.
Is ROAS, which I think is a dirty word at this point. In fact, again, I wrote the book. I wrote the first draft of the book 2 years ago, and just about 2 years ago. And there is a section in it that says ROAS is BS, and it's become more so true now than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's like, but it seems to be the main focus for a lot of people. Oh, my return on ad spend is 4, 5, 6, 10, 20. So
Yep.
I'm doing good. And that's the only thing people tend to focus on, and not looking at, okay, what happens after, or what happens once people purchase.
Yep.
So that's and you say it's BS. Is that also because it can be seen as a vanity metric, or it's just no use anymore after the iOS change, the Apple change?
No, it's BS because ROAS, people look at it, depends on how you're looking at it. But if I'm looking again, let's take it this way, let's look at your daily ROAS. And now let me spend $1,000 forever, and then today I decided to spend $100,000. You're not going to see any of those sales today. So now you're going to see the return on $1,000 spend, but you spent $100,000. Your ROAS is going to look horrible. And I'm using the extreme to illustrate the problem. We can talk about that on a weekly basis. If my budget last week was $5,000, this week is 50, or even 10, my ROAS will probably look half as good as it should, because I'm not giving it time to play out and actually see. And it's not you have to, it ignores purchase cycle. It's a metric that ignores the fact that marketing doesn't work instantly.
Yeah. And that comes back to risk management, because like you said, the purchase cycle can be 3 months. So you need to invest for 3 months, but you need to invest in the right things for 3 months. Otherwise you won't be able to see that purchase, because then people fizzle out.
Yeah. And you have to grow responsibly. Like that's the thing, because you don't see the returns on scale. When you scale your marketing, the purchases don't come in right away. So like you get into, frankly, working just like a supply chain needs working capital, and you end up with factoring and all these types of loans. Same thing with marketing, which is why we launched a financing arm because of that, because we saw we start scaling people, but they need more money, but the payback period is that purchase cycle. So they need to figure out how to finance that. And that's where, if you're getting that CAC to LTV again is 4, 5, 6 times your money. Well, yeah, finance the hell out of it. Don't get too over your skis that you can run into the ground, but like, makes sense to spend 7% interest on a thing that's making you 4x.
Yeah. So the 3 pillars, like you had the awareness, you have nurturing, and you have trust. In those 3 different pillars, what are the major marketing activities that you should be doing as a business owner? Because it's not just advertising on Facebook.
No. It depends on the business. It really depends on that. That's the whole thing, is like, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different tools and things to use. And I don't mean there's hundreds of thousands of tools to use. I'm saying that you actually like should focus on, there's probably hundreds. And it's on the individual business. And we talk about it a lot in the book, of like how to assess which type of advertising channels to use, what to do on the word of mouth side, what to do as far as PR, what to do as far as partnerships, what to do as far as email marketing, SMS, chat bots, content creation, again, third-party validation like influencer marketing and referrals and testimonials, and building your brand, and how do you build a solid brand, and all these things that you have to take into account. And what's interesting is, because of a lot of the changes and sort of the saturation in digital marketing the past couple of years, companies are now forced to really take this all into account. There are plenty of brands that built to mid 8-figure companies just running Facebook ads and emailing them. That built companies. It doesn't do it anymore. So you kind of have to run the gamut and, run a broader, more holistic approach.
Yeah. It's almost like digital marketing is growing up.
It's
becoming more mature. Yeah.
Yep.
So how is that because you just mentioned earlier that you're moving to, you have offices in Europe and Asia, starting out there. So how is that with marketing across borders? How does that change the game for you?
So we marketers, I believe, like, because it's so cultural, marketers should be local. So we've been marketing for European and Asian brands in the US for a long time. And so we built the team in Asia. We have a sales team in Asia helping brands that want to come to the US. And then we have just frankly a back office team in the Philippines that helps with some of the like data pulling and some of the back office stuff in the business. And then for Europe, we found a partner in the UK to start building out our UK presence. That now we can send business back and forth. We can help brands come from the US to go into Europe, et cetera. And I will say there's enough cultures in Europe that are similar. I'd say from a marketing perspective, we've seen Germany, Sweden, UK, Netherlands, all demonstrate similar marketing response and behavior. Mediterranean countries are completely different. And so you have to figure out it's different countries. Like a lot of times Americans think it's like different states. It's not. It is completely, it's like trying to go to Mexico with the same thing you did in the US. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So and so that's part of our long-term strategy is to have boots on the ground in each of those countries and figure out where it makes sense to continue to expand into. So we're, as kind of mentioned, we're solidifying our foothold where we are. We're integrating everything we've done to this point. And then probably next year, we'll be expanding into more of Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really having that local knowledge and that local understanding. That's the key to success. Yeah.
Yep. And finding great partners. I mean, we partnered up with a great small agency in Manchester, UK, and the founder is our managing director for Europe now. And that's what we're building out together.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you find out about compliance issues? Because when you say Europe, like, the GDPR and all sorts of compliance issues pop in the back of my mind. How do you deal with that?
So we don't take on legal responsibility. We're indemnified. So it's like we like GDPR and things like that. It's like same thing with CCPA in California. We'll mention it, but like we do not act as legal counsel. Like that is a legal challenge that the business has to deal with.
Yeah.
So how we act, like what we do personally at Hawke Media is one thing, but when we're building a website for someone else, it's the same thing with like ADA in the US. Now you have websites ADA compliant, and we can do it. We have a service that plugs in and does it, but we're not liable for a website we built that's not ADA compliant.
No, but you as Hawke Media will have to be compliant.
Yes,
for your clients, not for your clients' clients, but for your clients.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then again, how do you work around that? How do you work around all those different laws, regulations? Do you have a legal team because the business is now big enough to deal with that?
No, it's again, I think people overcomplicate it. There's not that much to work around because frankly, most softwares become compliant pretty quick. So, meaning like what you're allowed to do in email marketing, well, the email platforms don't want to get banned either. So they're going to not allow you to do certain things. So like we haven't had that much issue. And like when new laws come out, we take a look at them and see what that means. But it's not like there's a new law passing every day. It's like when CCPA came out, we analyzed it, we talked to our lawyers, we understood what that meant for us and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. So apart from growth and expansion in Asia and Europe, what else are your lofty big dreams or your BHAGs?
Yeah, we acquired a software company. We haven't announced yet, but we'll be announcing that is hopefully going to basically create AI-enabled CMOs and put a bunch of huge amount of data and like a lot of what we've talked about here, automate a lot of it so it doesn't fall on the individual to try to figure out. So that is moving way faster than I thought it would, which is awesome. Like the team's incredible. And so I've been super happy. So literally the only thing holding us out from launching it is a rebrand, like the thing we do best. The tech has been incredibly good. So yeah, just building that out. And that is, I'd say that's my the end of year goal is to have that running in a way that is doing the things I think it should be doing. Cause I think that could be just a massive move for us. And I mean, the big, hairy, audacious goal that I have is to be like our mission is accessibility to great marketing for everyone. I want this to be a global business where everywhere in the world, I look at the big four accounting firms and I want to be the big marketing firm where it's like small, medium, large business. You need tried, true, consistent marketing help. You got to Hawke Media. And that's what I want to build. And that's, I think, achievable.
Yeah. So you'll be like the Accenture or KPMG of marketing.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, I also work a lot with accelerators. Being in EO, being on the EO board, I work with accelerators growing their business towards that $1 million dollars in revenue. We have our sales and marketing learning day in June, so perfect timing. What message, apart from buy the book because it's accessible, but what message do you have for accelerators who have a smaller business and really want to use marketing and sales to grow to that $1 million?
I would say just to get to $1 million, don't. So a couple of things. One, don't hire anyone until you can afford to spend 10 grand a month on marketing consistently. Don't hire a person, don't hire an agency. Don't do it because you're not giving enough leverage there. Like, it sounds weird, but like, no one's going to build your business better than you will. And the problem is when you give someone else 1 or 2 grand or 3 grand and they're going to do it, they're not. And you're going to think they are. So you're not going to focus on that and it's going to hurt you. So just understand, I was told this before starting Hawke. I was told that as an agency founder, the first 2 to 3 years, you're going to be the main salesperson. Like, that's just how it goes. Thank God someone said that, because it was 3.5 years that it lasted, but I was ready for that. I was aware that I was going to have to drive revenue and bring on people to do the other things. I would say that that's probably true of most founders, unless it's a tech company and you're a technical founder. You're going to have to drive business. And so knowing that first million, as a founder, you have to build a business model that you can drive $1 million in. Like that, I hate to say it because it sounds flippant, but it's not hard to build $1 million business. It really isn't. There's tons of stupid memes out there about like how much it is, how many subscribers you need a day at what price point to build $1 million business, but it's really not that big of a number. To make, what is it, 83 grand a month? Is that right? No, that's not right.
Yeah, 83,333, I think.
Is that right? Or is that, that is right. So 83,333 a month. And so you start looking at that number and work backwards and go, okay, so you need to have 83 customers paying you $1,000 a month, as an example. Build a product that's worth $1,000 a month. Go get 83 people. That's not hard. If you have a good product or service. Part of this is like everything we're talking about doesn't matter if you have a bad product or service. You're good. If you have a good product or service, it's easy. If you don't, it's impossible. That's simple. So if you've built something that people actually need and there's enough of a need for it, you should be able to get that business going. And it really is about rolling up your sleeves and getting it done and doing things scrappy until you get to that point. And I think it's a great milestone. It's an exciting one. But I will say we did it in our first year. We hit just over $1 million, which was the goal. And we're bootstrapped. I went out and met people and figured out services and hired people and serviced it and got there. And we did it in our first year. So again, I would urge people to know that it is completely achievable and don't expect someone else to do it for you. And at the point that you have processes built to bring in business, that's when you bring in people.
And bring in people, you mean that's when you get an agency involved, or are you better off getting a fractional CMO?
Yeah, it depends on the business too. So I want to be clear, don't go run your own Facebook ads and things like that. Like, that can be a huge waste of money. What I'm saying is if you're a consumer business, it goes a little different. Like, you might want to look at trying to get into retail first, or trying to get some money going, or raise some money. That's the other thing is, again, the point is, until you can spend 10 grand a month on marketing, don't hire people. Once you're there, you can start putting people in to help you grow there. That I don't think you need to wait to get to $1 million to hire people. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that you still need to be the one driving it. Not just like, okay, here you go, not my problem anymore. Our best clients that we've taken from that point to hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in revenue are the ones that were like, we're all in this together. Like, I'm bringing you guys on because I don't know how to pull Facebook levers or as well as you do, or I don't know how to do email marketing like you guys do. And I need someone to be doing it, but I'm going to be in the weeds. I'm going to be like working with you, and not like micromanaging, but like, I'm going to be doing my part too of like finding other ways to bring in business, like endorsements or partnerships and things like that, and doing business development while you guys are managing the day-to-day scalable marketing. That's the best partnerships we have.
Yeah. Cool. So don't hire anybody until you can get to that $10,000 a month where you go like, yep, here you go, do it. But also stay involved. That's what I'm hearing you as well. Like, don't just hand over the baby and go like, we'll see it when it graduates from high school.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Any other hints, tips, ideas, advice, recommendations, experiences?
business ownership, if we're talking to business owners, just know that being an entrepreneur or a CEO is a constant shit show. And I think that I say this because it's super important to know that like it never ends. Tim Cook is dealing with crazy stuff, or Elon Musk. Like none of these people, there's no finish line until you maybe exit and go to a beach somewhere. And still you're going to be stressed about something. So just know that, because then when all the issues in your business pop up, as the founder or CEO, your job is to deal with the biggest problems of the company, biggest opportunities too. So like the idea there is like, if there is a lawsuit or something big hitting the company, you're going to be pulled in because the other people aren't going to know what to do. And that's what's going to fall on your plate. So your job is to deal with the biggest problems and the biggest, again, opportunities. Where can we expand? How do we grow this? And once you accept that and know that, you know what you signed up for. Because one thing I hate to hear is like people are like, oh, I couldn't do anything else. It's like, yes, you could. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. It is a complete choice. And when you take that power and you know that I made this decision, I want to be an entrepreneur, and you know what you're signing up for, meaning you know it's going to be a shit show, then when it is, you're like, yeah, this is what I signed up for. It's all good. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, yeah.
Great recommendation. You know what you're getting yourself into, so don't complain. Just work through it or do something else.
That one out, and it really helped when I got into that mindset.
Yeah. But it also circles back to your elementary and high school at the Oak Grove. You know, it is that holistic approach. It is that making your own choices and moving to what makes you happy. And if the choice of owning a business and being a CEO is what makes you happy, it comes with the whole kit and caboodle. It comes with the whole package, not just the glamorous shots with the glasses of champagne.
Yeah, agreed. And that's, and let's be real. I actually don't know this. I wonder what the expected income of an entrepreneur versus an executive or like a business person would be. Because I don't think entrepreneurs on average make more money than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so I think like if you're in it for the money, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah. Again, it depends on what metric you use. So if you look at your daily, your monthly paycheck, that's a different thing than the wealth and equity you create in your business while you're growing it. And you don't have that when you're an executive. I mean, you may get the monthly. So it depends on whether you go for the short-term gratification or the longer term, I suppose. But I know. Different topic. Erik, I'm not taking more of your time. You're super busy. Thank you so much for your insights. Show the cover of the book so people recognize it when they look at it on Amazon.
The Hawke Method.
The Hawke Method. Like I said, I started reading it yesterday. It's a super easy read, but it's not simple. So don't be fooled by the fact that it's an easy read, because it's quite in depth and but it's accessible like you are. So thank you very much for your time, and good luck with chasing your dreams and making them real.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So I'll end the stream here. Hang on, because I want to chat with you.